So I'm a philosophy student and psychology student. I started studying psychology first and realised philosophy was, what I was into, and the area of philosophy that I was into was suffering. So that's why Nietzsche's up there, of course, and then Carl Jung, who's a psychologist. And what I found was that many of the world religions, Christianity, Buddhism, and so on, were quite limited in their explanation of the world. And it seems that it was a kind of a game of cat and mouse, where one philosophy would describe an aspect of reality, leaving out a whole other aspect of reality, and then I would see, okay, what philosophy sits at the foundation of that? And then it would leave out a whole other aspect of reality. So philosophy was a difficult game, and somehow I got to studying ancient mythology, and I found a lot of rich explanations about the world in ancient mythology. I'm going to explain. I have a kind of unique explanation for alchemy, the four elements, and so on, and then I'm going to tie that into the existing explanations for alchemy. So what I did was, a long time ago, as a little thought experiment, so I thought that much of what we say is true is influenced by our culture, religion, and even our species. So just on that, what I'm talking about is the search for truth is kind of hampered by the fact that we are human, and that truth might transcend what humanity is. And also our culture, of course, is even more prone to distorting what truth is. So, to understand real truth, we must strip these variables back to nothing. What does life truly mean? Simply as conscious entities occupying reality. So the idea is, in philosophy, it's called brain in a vat. It's like you're just a floating consciousness. You're not a human, you don't have culture, you don't have anything. The only thing that you can do is think. And then we start there to determine kind of what are the true foundational principles of the world. So, the truth number one is the world exists. This seems laughably obvious, but in philosophy we have to apply a very strict philosophical, analytical rigor to every single truth claim. And the world existing seems to be pretty self-evident. Some philosophers in the past have actually argued that nothing exists, and all of this is a mirage suspended in kind of, it's almost like the universe is a shadow of what could be, but it actually isn't a thing in and of itself. Very interesting, very confusing, but I just don't think it's true. I think the fact that we are here is proof that the world exists. And if you entertain the idea that the world doesn't exist, you stumble into a bunch of paradoxes that are very hard to get out of. So again, it seems obvious, but we've established the world exists. Second truth, I exist. Consciousness, experience, and mind. So mind is more than the body. So when we think of mind, we're not thinking about necessarily like thought per se, or psychology, because those things are prone to the material world, or the material world can impact them. So on this point, on us existing, the us that I'm talking about is the immaterial us. So in philosophy there's a view called the automaton. And if we live in a purely material world with no spiritual, nothing immaterial at all, then creatures, animals, human beings even, should be able to exist, and they won't even know themselves that they are there. So it's kind of like an empty room with nobody in them. Like a good way of illustrating it is someone in this room is not conscious, but they have all the brain psychology to mimic consciousness. And we don't know who that person is because we can't distinguish between them and someone who is conscious, hence the paradox. But the only way that we can know that this claim is true is yourself. So, for example, I don't know if any of you aren't that mindless automaton. I don't know. But I know I'm not because I experience. So this idea kind of is the proof behind the immaterial, that there is a kind of conscious experience. And we'll get to the illustration later. But so this is the kind of system that we've worked out. There's a material world, which is the Big Bang here. Everything, of course, material that we know of exists in it, but also the immaterial a little bit. So energy, gases, and so on are still material. And then we have the world of experience. this knows no form or anything. So I'll explain what they are. So the material plane properties is everything tangible, physical, but also energy-based, everything that has ever existed since the Big Bang. Even our bodies and therefore brains and psychology is dictated by the material plane. So I've seen a lot of explanations, you know, in esoteric thought that, you know, emotionality and psychology are immaterial principles, but I don't think they are. I think they can kind of be reduced to the material. The immaterial plane, notice I didn't use any images because you can't conceptualize or refer to the material world without, the immaterial world without referring to the material, as I said at the bottom. So the non-physical realm where concepts, thoughts, I know I said thoughts before, but this is the immaterial aspect of the thought, and abstract principles exist independently of the material world. This includes mathematical concepts, but not math, because math is a human invention. Morality, relationships between entities, identity, concepts of beauty, love, high truth, and the divine. None of these can be found in material stuff, but we know that they exist. So this is my favorite illustration of it. I saw this and I thought, that is exactly what I've been researching. So I'll illustrate kind of what I mean here. The white dots is the material world, and they move, maybe any individual dot is moving independent of the rest. It could be an atom, for example, just moving, you know, through life. And each different atom, of course, is on its own separate path. As far as the material world is concerned, there is no circle moving here. There's just atoms moving. Only in the immaterial world can we say that there is a circle there. So the question that I would have is there a circle moving here or not? Because if you say there isn't a circle, because there's only dots just happen to be moving on their own predetermined course, then you enter a problem where almost everything we experience in our life is an immaterial concept. We have a lot of immaterial concepts that seem material but aren't. For example, colour. Colour is not something that exists in like the material world. It's actually a creation in the brain. It's an experience that is kind of had as opposed to something that is physically tangible. So it's a little bit difficult to explain. I hope I explained it well, but the point of it is that right here is two of the worlds overlapping. One is the immaterial world of the circle, and the other one is the material world of the dot. Okay, and truth 3 and 4 is chaos and order. So this is the idea that amongst the material world and immaterial world, it's either going to be perceived through the individual mind as ordered or unordered. Chaos refers to the state of disorder, unpredictability, lack of structure. Order signifies structure, of course, predictability, harmony. It often represents creation, civilization, and the imposition of rules or laws to bring stability. From our finite perspective, the world is either going to take a predictable and ordered form or a disordered and chaotic form. I should have said at the beginning, if anyone has any questions throughout the talk, I love questions. So please ask them throughout. I don't consider it. Go on.
So why do you think there was a Big Bang?
I think there was a Big Bang. So, okay, there might not have been, right? But I'm giving charity to the scientific explanation of the material world. Right, I don't have to. I can kind of say that, well, there's other kind of Genesis stories about how we came to be, but I'm just giving, for the people who might listen to me who might be a hard rationalist, I want to give you, you know, your cake, or whatever the term is. Like, I want that to be said. Anyway, anyone else? No? Okay. So, this is a little illustration. This is the self, and they live in both a immaterial and material world, right? And then you have chaos and order overlapping that, so that the material exists within the space of order. The material also exists in the space of chaos, and the immaterial exists in the space of chaos, but it also exists in the space of the material. So this is where we really get into what the 4 elements are. So I have to get this big, convoluted philosophical explanation out of the way. Okay. Existence exists, the immaterial world of concepts exists, order exists, and chaos exists. So what I thought was, okay, well, if these are the 4 kind of axes of or truths of the world, what is in between them? What do we call the things which are chaotic in nature but still exist? What do we call the things that are chaotic in nature but are immaterial? And, so I call them the chaotic material, as you would expect, the ordered material, the ordered immaterial, and the chaotic immaterial. So I'm going to expound on what these are. Okay, material order. The ordered material world is nature, the universe, chemical, physical, botanical, biological interactions. I'm not going to read all of it, just for time. Material chaos. The material chaos is simply change. So it's the fact that the world that we live in is in a state of flux. If we live in a purely material world, there wouldn't be any change. There wouldn't be that fourth dimension of change. But the fact that there is gives rise to chaos. The immaterial world of order. I'm going to start with the immaterial world of chaos first. This is swapped around. The chaotic immaterial is the infinite number of relationships between entities in the universe. It's the realm of thought. It can become conceptual, but also nonsensical. This is the real idea of... this is the realm, misspelling, of idea, not of the ideal. The world of the ideal, principle, belief, and so on, is the realm of the immaterial order. So it's, for example, a belief is an immaterial concept, but it's ordered around some kind of system. Immaterial chaos is when you just, maybe like someone who has incoherent thoughts. Maybe it might be a psychedelic trip or something. It's just chaotic thoughts. Okay, so on this, what I thought, I was watching actually Avatar: The Last Airbender at the time. It's a TV show, right? And I was thinking, this sounds like Uncle Iroh's explanation, right? And I thought, material order sounds a lot like kind of the element of Earth. Material chaos is like, what's material but still chaotic in nature is water, liquids. Like you kind of see kind of the states of matter here. Immaterial order would be kind of like gases, and immaterial order would be something like fire, and immaterial chaos would be something like gases. So I thought that's kind of like earth, water, fire, and air. And so I dug a little deeper on it. So the material world, the material order is earth, stable, static, firm, consistent. Material chaos is water, lucid, changing, chaotic, is seldom still. Immaterial chaos is air, immaterial order is fire. So I thought this was interesting because to me, I boiled down kind of reality to its core essences, and there's this kind of motif at the center of it. And I thought, well, if this kind of motif that's found in mythology is explaining the foundations of reality, maybe the other symbols within mythology are also saying something as to the nature of reality. So, introducing alchemy. Alchemy, in a nutshell, is an ancient tradition where it is believed that there existed a union between the material and the immaterial planes, and that this union was discoverable in the material world. So to explain that better, what they believed was that anything in the immaterial space is found in the material. There's a one-to-one correlation of them. And so, for example, gold is not gold literally, but gold symbolizes enlightenment. So to find the Philosopher's Stone, that's something that can transmute coal or mercury into gold, is a symbol for attaining spiritual enlightenment. That being said, there were still alchemists that were purely physical and just wanted to search for gold. So there was both. And ironically enough, that kind of is like a microcosm of alchemy generally. You have the materialists and the immaterialists. So some of the symbols are coal or black substances or soot is nihilism, meaninglessness, because whatever you made in the process of alchemy was just nothing. Gold is spiritual enlightenment. Silver is semi-enlightenment. So these kind of concepts, they believe, could be created in the world. And it gets a little confusing because I know I said gold was enlightenment, but they thought that there was a kind of enlightenment beyond that was like kind of a overarching enlightenment, and that's what the Philosopher's Stone is. The Philosopher's Stone transmutes base metals, kind of base ways of thinking, into higher enlightened thoughts. So, alchemy, where does it come from? Kemet was originally what ancient Egypt was called, the Black Land, because of the Nile River, something to do with the fertile side of the Nile River. It led to a very black kind of land. So, very interesting there. And the Hellenization of Egypt created alchemy, and that's where we get chemistry from today. So, funnily enough, the field of chemistry is named after ancient Egypt. Okay, so where did alchemy come from within ancient Egypt? Was Thoth, or Tot, depending on how you pronounce it. The bulk of this tradition was allegedly from Tot. I call him Thoth, actually. He was the god of moon, wisdom, knowledge, writing, hieroglyphs, science, magic, art, judgment of astronomy, astrology, the science of numbers, mathematics, geometry, much more. When I say much more, it filled the page, and I thought I'm not going to, read through all that and put you guys through that. They further claimed he was the true author of every branch of knowledge, human, divine, and divine. Thoth was seen as the go-between of the worlds of matter and spirit, so already you can start to see this foundational idea of matter and spirit. And of course, the Theosophists in the room will know that this is touching on as above, so below. The ancients believed alchemy was literally a gift from the gods. When I say literally, I mean literally they thought it was a gift from gods, and was practiced near the Great Pyramids, where the Great Pyramids still stand. Okay, so in ancient mythology and so on, there's a lot of what's called syncretizations. So one god, in Egypt is another god in ancient Mesopotamian. So Hermes Trismegistus, very famous, is Thoth and Mercury together. Why this is true is because, or Mercury or Hermes is actually a god. It's because Hermes is the Greek god of, what this figure is, and Thoth is the Egyptian. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, they were kind of merged together in Alexandria, and then you got Hermes Trismegistus. He wrote the Emerald Tablet. It's one of the texts attributed to Hermes. Now, we don't know whether he wrote it. We know he didn't write it, in the sense that the versions that we have now, he didn't write by hand. We have translations from the Arabic world, which kind of say that they were from Hermes, but it's still very ancient, lost to time. We don't know what it is. It's very interesting, very mystical, and there's a lot of fakes out there too. Okay, so this is the translation. Truth, certainty, that which in there is no doubt. That which is above is from that which is below, and that which is below is from that which is above. Working the miracles of one. As all things were from one, its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. The earth is carried in her belly, and the wind nourished in her belly, as the earth shall become fire. Feed the earth from that which is subtle. With the greatest power, it ascends from the earth to the heaven and becomes ruler over that which is above and that which is below, and so on. So very interesting, very cryptic, and many people have gone to, interpret what that means. But as far as I know, this is the genesis of this idea of above and below, that which is above and that which is below. Now, I would argue that it does predate this, but a lot of people use this as a foundational text for that. Okay, just another little interesting tidbit. This is called Mary Prophetessa, or also go by Mary the Jewess. She's a legendary figure. I'd never heard of her before this research, but she's extremely legendary throughout the ancient world, and she's rumored to be the sister of Moses. So she was a famous alchemist. She set the precept, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and out of the third comes 1 as the fourth. And there was no elaboration on what that meant, really. So interpret it as you will. So, the 4 elements believed to have come from Empedocles, as you can see, 494 BC. And you do a Google search, you're going to get the explanation that Empedocles created the 4 elements idea. It is absolutely not true in my opinion. Now, he might have had the explanation that every little kind of atom, everything in the world is made up of the four elements. But the idea of the four elements predate him by a huge margin. So we're going to kind of contest this today. So the four elements reanalyzed. Let's have a look at this again through the lens of the four elements. We have clear kind of above and below symbolism, which we explained. I would explain this as the immaterial and material. We have, so quick little things that when you look at the ancient texts, you have fire, but it's not just fire, it's light, energy, lightning. Lightning was actually more favored over fire, and fire became a later symbol. The father is always the sun, the mother is always the moon, almost. There's some religions that swap around, but by and large that's what it is. And the sun is synonymous with gold, the moon silver. The earth was carried in her belly, the wind nourished in her belly, earth shall become fire. So you have this kind of four elements sitting at the foundation of it. But it could be a coincidence. So we look further. This is the Corpus Hermeticum. This is in the first book of the Corpus Hermeticum. This is what is attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. And it says, it begins when God, by an act of his will, creates primary matter. To me, that would be the kind of seed of life. That is to constitute the cosmos. From primary matter, God separates the four elements, earth, air, fire, and water. Just so you know, this is a paraphrase. We'll go into the translation maybe. It's very dense and hard to read, so I just thought I'd paraphrase it here. Separates the four elements. The word logos then leaps forth, this is very important, the word logos then leaps forth from the materializing four elements, which were unintelligent. Nous then makes the seven heavens spin, and from them spring forth creatures without speech. Earth then is separated from the water and animals, and are brought forth. Then God orders the elements into the seven heavens, and so on. So that's the direct translation if anyone wanted to take a quick photo, but it essentially says the same thing that I said. One little thing I'd like to say is that he said it was a voice of fire. A very interesting idea. It kind of connects the idea of the logos to fire. So Genesis in the Bible. In the beginning God created the heavens and earth. Again, a heaven-earth dichotomy at the very beginning of the text. Earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, the Spirit of God, and so on. I'll just point out the kind of connection. So let there be light is fire, separated the waters from the waters. God created, called the vault sky, and then there's also the ground, establishment of the ground. So establishment of the four elements at the beginning of creation. The Enuma Elish is one of the first texts in human history. Is one of the first cosmogonies of where where the world came from and so on. It's from the ancient Mesopotamian religion. And I'll just again point out, so what I wanted to point out was, so essentially, at the beginning of time, there was Tiamat and Apsu. They are both water deities, but she's the water of fresh water and he's salt water, or maybe the other way around. Marduk, who ends up being her great-great-grandson, slayed Tiamat and then created the heavens and earth out of her body. So, where does it say that? Yes, Marduk divided the heavens and earth to create the sky and the earth. Marduk divided the gods into above and below. Another really important thing is that Marduk says, open thy mouth, images shall vanish, speak again, and images shall be whole. So you have this kind of logos kind of similarity with speaking images into creation. Okay, so this is Fuji and Nuwa, if I pronounce it right. They were the original humans who lived on the mythological Kunlun mountain. One day, they set up piles of fire, and the fire eventually became one. So this is kind of like divine union. Under the fire, they decided to become husband and wife. Fuji and Nuwa used clay to create offspring. With the divine power, they made the clay figures come alive, humans. So, really interesting is the half-snake body. This is such a recurring and ancient motif. It just goes on and on. Really interesting. But yeah, so she represents the moon, he represents the sun, might be the other way around. You've got the sun here and the moon there. That's confirmed when I researched it, an explanation of the sun and the moon. So, yep.
Can you go back to that slide? I think, well, from my perspective, I see the Kundalini there. I see the Caduceus, I see the rising,
Yep.
male, female energies, and to me, alchemy is our enlightenment through the rising of the spiritual Kundalini energies.
Yeah.
And this is perfect representation of that.
Mm.
Because we talked about that in my session,
Mhm.
how with the Caduceus,
Yes.
Trismegistus, now it's coming out in this Chinese,
100%. 100%. I wish I cut that out because I just didn't have time to go into it, but very quickly, if I could spam through these and we look at here, you see, again, the Caduceus there, right? And so it's incredible. It goes even deeper. There's more. So what was most profound, Fuji looked up and contemplated the images in the heavens, looked downwards and contemplated the occurrences on earth, again, above and below. He united man and wife, regulated the 5 stages of change and so on. I'm going to get past it. So what was so interesting, this was one of the most profound realizations, was that I saw this and I thought it looked like a square. And then I saw these and I thought they look like scissors, right? And then I researched it. They are in fact a compass. And that is the Freemason symbol. In ancient Chinese myth, I've never heard of this, right? It's the male blade and the female chalice of water. The alchemical marriage, again, they're intertwined with each other. The alchemical marriage between male and female. In order to repair the sky and end suffering on earth, she made 4 pillars to hold up the heavens using the legs of a sky tortoise and 5 multicolored elemental stones to repair the sky. Again, Seal of Solomon as well, which is a it's a separate kind of myth. So it's really interesting to see these overlap. This is Pangu. So Pangu created the world in the Chinese myth. This is the creation myth. So heaven and earth were in chaos like a chicken's egg. That is a right translation. I was like, surely this is not right when I'm working with this, but I looked into it. They say like a chicken's egg. Pangu was born in the middle of it. 18,000 years, heaven and earth opened and unfolded. The whites was yang and became the heavens. The turbid yoke was yin and became the earth. His breath became the wind and clouds. His voice became pearls of thunder. His eyes became the sun. And then he ends up just describing the earth. So that's a symbol for the earth, about how his body became the earth. And again, very interesting. You have the 4 elements at the beginning of creation. What's similar to this was tickling my brain a bit. I was like, where have I heard this before? Ymir in Norse mythology. So fashioned the earth from his flesh, from his blood the ocean, from his bones the mountains. Almost exact, right? His blood became the water and rivers. His blood the ocean, right? From his brains the clouds, from his skull the heavens, and from his eyebrows the middle range which mankind lives. Also similar to Tiamat when she was destroyed and heaven and earth was created out of her body. So, yeah, I don't have time to read that, but it's very interesting. In Nordic mythology, Ostri, Vestri, Norari, Sauri, I don't know how to pronounce them, I feel horrible. They took Ymir's skull and made it the heaven and set it up over the earth with 4 corners. Under each corner, they sat a dwarf. The names of them were east, west, north and south. That's where we get east, north and south from. And yes, they are directly synonymous with the 4 elements. So again, the 4 elements are coming from a great giant who created creation. Their body was created into heaven and earth. So the cosmic egg is a very recurring, motif, symbol all throughout mythology. The Dogon tribe. Now here's where it gets crazy, because this is in Africa. And this is much separate from many of the other myths. This is the Dogon people. Now, this is their myth. In Dogon mythology, the creator god Amma takes the form of an egg. The egg is divided into 4 sections representing the 4 elements: air, fire, water, and earth. This also establishes the 4 cardinal directions. Again, extremely similar, completely separate creation. In Armenian mythology, Vahan, the dragon reaper, heaven was in labour, the earth was in labour. Again, straight at the beginning, heaven and earth. The purple sea was in labour. The sea labour pains also held the little red reed. Along the reed pipe smoke ascended, so on and so on. And from the flame, a red-headed young boy jumped out. He had celestial fire for hair, and he had flame for a beard. His eyes were the sun's. He would go on to slay a great serpent. Okay, Brahma. So, faces in 4 different directions, stated that he faces in the direction of the cardinal, directions. 4 arms. He's commonly depicted as a red or golden complexion bearded man with 4 heads and hands, and so on, as I said. His first 4 children were these lot, and they remained his children forever, and they travel around and so on. They're called Kumaras, the 4 sages. And the final one is synonymous with enlightenment. I found that really interesting. Okay. In Indian myth, the Mani jewel. So the Mani jewel is a broad explanation. There's many jewels believed to be the Mani jewel. The Chintamani is the most kind of clear one. So the Mani jewel manifests whatever one wishes. According to one's desires, treasures, clothing, food can be manifested. It also heals you. So this seems like a kind of proto-philosopher's stone. The Chintamani is called the wish-fulfilling gem, the As One Wishes jewel, and it's possessed by Lakshmi. So very interesting. In Chinese, it's called the As One Wishes jewel. So you have this idea of a jewel that grants wishes. Okay, so the Mani jewel, esotericist René Guénon considered the Chintamani to be the equivalent of the philosopher's stone. Goddess Lakshmi is said to be in possession of it. She's not there, but in other depiction she is. I'm using this depiction for a reason, it's very interesting. In Tibetan Buddhism, the jewel is inscribed with Om Mani Padme Hum. And this is where, it's the shortened version of it. Praise to the jewel in the lotus. Lakshmi is the first goddess depicted to sit in the throne of the lotus. So this kind of symbol of the lotus being a seat, I found out that Lakshmi is the first to have been depicted that way. So, kind of an interesting connection there. It could be a coincidence, right?
Sorry,
yep.
Also, Kuan Yin is actually the lotus in the Buddhism. She is the same as Lakshmi in Indian Hindu.
I see.
Yeah. The lotus is actually Omnipadme is Kuan Yin's is her mantra.
Yeah, exactly. So incredible connection there. So in Tibetan Buddhism, it's very famous. It's a very revered phrase. It's associated with the Lord of the World. I'm not going to attempt it. I'm sorry, but out of respect. Right? Buddhists call him the Lord of the World. In some texts, he is considered to be the source of all Hindu deities, such as Vishnu, Shiva, Saraswati, Brahma, and so on. I'll probably need to research that claim a little bit more. It is very interesting, though, because I've not heard of this figure until this research. This phrase is referred to the innermost heart of the Lord of the World.
It is called Avalokiteshvara.
That was excellent. I could not have done that if I tried. I'll be up here all night trying to say that, to be honest with you. Okay, so the innermost heart, it just made me think of the heart chakra. Anahata. It's the 4th primary chakra, and it sits in the lotus. It's represented by the lotus flower with 12 petals. It creates a shaktona, and that's this symbol. Right? So, what is interesting is 2 interlocking triangles. Their union gives birth to Kumara. That's the Kumara I talked about before, whose sacred number is 6. And it is a divine union between masculine and feminine. That's what I was looking for. Divine union between masculine and feminine. Exactly the same as what we saw in the Chinese myth. And this is Lakshmi, and one thing I found very interesting was that her hand's slightly a little bit above and below-esque. Now, of course, this might not struck to the heart of the religion, it might be the artist's little interpretation. What's more interesting is it seems like there's your eyes point to these lines of this Shaktona that she's creating. And you can kind of see it there. And that would be the Shaktona sitting in the lotus, the heart chakra, which, by the way, is the only chakra with that symbol. Not all of them have it. Another little analysis of, so the alchemists are just known for hiding secrets in their paintings and drawings. It's really interesting. And this slide, I had to put this in. I spent a whole day on this, and I don't even get to, go through all of it, but I'm going to speed run through it. So if you look at it, I noticed that just a lot of lines, your eye just kind of comes to a lot of lines, and he's pointing, and I found that something was about this image. Other things are intentional, because I'm an artist myself. I've been an artist for over 10 years, and there's too much symmetry in it for my liking. And as you can see, you have, the reason I'm using this is the original. You have air and earth there, and then water and fire, 4 elements. If you go through these lines, it creates this symbol for earth, using this crossbar here, and then the air also touching the cloud, the symbol for air, overlapping, creating the Shaktona again. Now, this seems like a massive leap that I'm making, but it's not. I have about a good 15 to 20 more slides explaining why this is true. There's about 15 or so slides in between this one and this one. So, really interesting. Okay, so we've covered 4 of the 6 cradles of civilization, which are supposed to be separate in terms of how they came about in their myths. And make no mistake, the ancient Mesoamerican and Peruvian religions also have these same symbols. We just don't have time to cover them. So what do the alchemists say? This is just an explanation of what the Philosopher's Stone is. One thing of note is that the stone was possessed by the line of Adam to the Gnostics. They say that divine gnosis was handed down throughout the line of Adam. As we have seen from the Eastern traditions, the Chintamani is divine wisdom. Hermes, Thoth, Nebo, Christ, Moses, Adam, Melchizedek, Shem, Noah, all possess gnosis. And all possess the Philosopher's Stone, are stated to have been. Okay, you have the mutus liber. This is an old alchemical text where there's no words, that's why it's mutus. And what's funny about it is that the author of it essentially said, the Philosopher's Stone is in this, and if you don't get it, you're too stupid to get it. And he was really brutal about it. He said that my work is not for the eyes of those who don't understand. So very interesting. This is something that occurs in it. So this speaks to the level of depth about how much the alchemists went into chemistry. The green lion is called aqua regia, and it's one of the only compounds which dissolves gold. And the sun, of course, is a symbol for gold. And aqua regia is a liquid. It is water. It was believed to be more water than water because it dissolved more. And there you have, again, this red liquid being created as a result of aqua regia gold, as you can see here. And that was the goal. That is the Philosopher's Stone of what they were talking about. Alchemists tried to find the Philosopher's Stone in a simulation of opposites. The Atalanta Fugians is a very famous alchemical text. Just a lot of images for you guys to have a look at. You see the, Caduceus there, and this androgynous figure between the sun and the moon. The combination of opposites, as you see here again, right? It's everywhere. It's literally, they're obsessed with it. So again, figures with tails, half snakes. So the saying is, make of a man and a woman circle, then a quadrangle. Out of this triangle, then make a circle, and you will have the stone of the wise. And thus is made the stone which thou canst not discover unless you, through diligence, learn to understand the geometrical teaching. He further describes in detail the metaphysical nature and the meaning of the emblem, and so on. So they were really big on hiding things in their images. This text is one of the first multimedia works of images and text. And as you can see here, there's the image, there's that salt, that's the alchemical symbol for salt. As you can see here, you have man and woman at the center of the four elements, and they believed in this trinity, which I do not, that's why I'm not talking about it. And then what's also peculiar is that the triangle doesn't fit perfect within the circle. It's intentional because, I won't go into that, but essentially, like if you look here, you have this compass here. Turns out that this angle here is exactly the same as the angle he's making with these two sticks. That points right to the center and right to the edge. So there is these mathematical things which people have gone to do and find out these secrets that he's encoding in these images. So what is the Philosopher's Stone? The Philosopher's Stone is a material metaphor for the realization of the self. This is what Carl Jung found. The Philosopher's Stone was instrumental in the idea of individuation, which he created. He called it realizing who you are. In my research, I did in fact find a substance that evokes the same properties as the Philosopher's Stone. So what I'm talking about here is a little sleight of hand that I'm going to pull, but there is something, a substance, which is given to people that when they take it, they evoke all these incredible benefits. So this substance, which comes in the form of a real pill, can increase the speed of wound healing, alleviate and cure depression. It makes up 82% of the ingredient of all antidepressants. It cures migraines, alleviates Parkinson's, cures cancer, makes you physically stronger and faster, alters your mood, increases your chance of successful surgery, increases or decreases your hormones. I went through studies to look at this, right? It's very true. Makes you lose weight and much more. It's been used for thousands of years. It flies under the radar of most. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? What they think they might be getting at? Water? No. Kind of close. Sugar. Placebo. Yeah. So it is incredible. We gloss over how incredible placebo is in society. It does, in fact, 82% of antidepressants is explained by a placebo. It does, in fact, increase the speed at which you heal wounds. How do your thoughts, that you just are taking something that's nice, make you heal quicker? It doesn't make any sense, right? There's not even a rationalist, hard scientist explanation for how this works. How does our thoughts cure cancer?
Through belief.
Exactly. Through the power of belief. So right here I have Alexander the Great after slashing the Gordian knot. I wish I could explain what that was. Sorry, someone? No? Okay. Alright, so you can boost the efficacy of some medications by verbally asserting what it does. So this is a little bit of information. I work in the supplement industry as well, so I thought I'd leave you guys with this. This is true. This is completely true to a full extent. 30% of all the medication you take, the efficacy of it is explained by placebo. Now it's different depending on the supplement. As I said, antidepressants, 82% of them is placebo, but the average is 30. And it is true that it's studied extensively, if you verbally assert what a pill that you're about to take does before you take it, it's more effective. So I call it a hack, that if you take supplements or medication, depending on the medication, I might add, you can make it more effective just by saying what it does. And I do this. I take a lot of supplements. I work in the supplement industry. I have things that boost attention, and I'll in my head go, this is going to make me, I'll kind of mull it over, and this is going to work. This is going to be crazy, and I'm kind of leveraging the power of placebo of my own mind to make the supplement work better. So yes, the power of belief indeed. If this is true about medication, then what effect does what you say about yourself have? So, as I said there, if I talk about some supplements and mull it over and talk about, oh my God, this is going to make me so great, what is the little thoughts in our head about how we're not good enough? How does that actually affect us on a functional level throughout life? So, this realization, however, it's easy to say, however, is the hardest thing one can achieve mentally, as the mind loves its limitations, because limitations establish a safe border in the world between chaos and order. By extension, the individual can and often does become terrified by the unknown of what they will be once they have transcended limitations. So what I'm going on about here, right, is in philosophy there was a concept called belief and alif. And alif is acknowledging something is true. Like if you guys were to go on there and be like, okay, it's glass, it's like probably harder than steel, you know, you probably couldn't shatter it if you tried, I'm not going to fall through. But if you go up there and feel what these people feel, you would probably, a lot of you, be a lot like them. So we can say, you know, to the cows come home, just believe in yourself. But there is a massive gap between acknowledging that you should believe in yourself and being strong enough mentally to actually do it. In conclusion, Philosopher's Stone is the mental transcendent liberation of the world, liberation from the world of limitation. The self starts out as a union, but as we come into creation, then we become lost with amongst the various divisions the world sets for us. Through studying the four components of the experience we live in, we're able to mentally take the leap of faith to be who we are and reunionize as distinct entities. The wizard, this is concluding now. So this is in tarot, you see this figure, the master of the four elements. The four suits of tarot are the four elements of ancient Celtic myth. Swords, cups, wands, pentacles is air, water, fire, and earth. This comes, you know, I did a whole study on this, barely got to talk about it, but it's really interesting. And this figure here, the magician, I call him the wise man being gender neutral, is because it's more accurate as to what he is. He's not a magician, he's master of wisdom, of gnosis, right? This is actually where we get our cards from, is from these suits. Such symbols signify the classic elements of fire, earth, water, which lie like counters for the adept and adapts, and he who is, you know, mastered it, adapts them as he wills. Funnily enough, the magician is associated with the planet Mercury, who is Hermes Trismegistus. But believing in yourself is a hard thing to do. It may even be the hardest thing you can do in a single lifetime. But from my research and what I have gathered, it's the individual that is the most unique and powerful thing in the universe, of which we know, as we are the intersection of the four elements that compose reality. We are the conduits between heaven and earth, and there is nothing else like us in the universe which can boast the same capacity. And that almost concludes it. I just have one last thing to quickly go through. So in the Corpus Hermeticum, there was a text called the Lament. This is Hermes talking to Asclepius, who's actually his little cousin. And Asclepius is also seen as like a development of Hermes Trismegistus. And this is something that he said to Asclepius. Okay, so he said,
"Do you know, Asclepius, that Egypt is an image of heaven? Or to speak more exactly, in Egypt all the operations of the powers which rule and work in heaven have been transferred to earth below. This land and region will be filled with foreigners. Not only will men neglect the service of the gods, but Egypt will be occupied by Scythians or Indians, or by some such race from the barbarian countries thereabout. In that day will our most holy land, this land of shrines and temples, be filled with funerals and corpses. Do you weep at this, Asclepius? There is worse to come. Egypt herself will have yet more to suffer. She will fall into a far more piteous plight, and will be infected with the more grievous plagues of this land, which was once holy, and a land which loved the gods, and therein alone, in reward for her devotion, the gods deigned to sojourn upon the earth, a land which was a teacher of mankind in holiness and piety. O Egypt, Egypt, of thy religion nothing will remain but an empty tale, which thine own children in time will come to not believe. Nothing will be left but graven words, and only stones will tell of thy piety. And in that day will men be weary of life, and they will cease to think the universe worthy of reverent wonder and worship. And so religion, the greatest of all blessings, for there is nothing, nor has been, nor ever shall be, that can be deemed a greater boon, will be threatened with destruction. Men will think it a burden, and will come to scorn it. They will no longer love this world around us, this incomparable work of God. Darkness will be preferred to light, and death will be thought of more profitable than life. No one will raise his eyes to heaven. The pious will be deemed insane. and the impious wise. The madman will be thought brave, and the wicked will be esteemed as good. As to the soul, and the belief that it is immortal by nature, or may hope to attain immortality, as I have taught you, all this they will mock at, and will even persuade themselves that it is false. No word of reverence or piety, no utterance worthy of heaven, of the gods of heaven, will be heard or believed.
Religion will be no more, all things will be disordered and awry, all good things will disappear. He will bring back this world of former aspect, so that the cosmos will one again be deemed worthy of worship and wondering of reverence. So he concludes that in the end, the wise will return. That's kind of what he's getting at. At the very least, if this is not, anything more, it's very beautiful. And the ancients believe that the individual is sacred and something that we've lost. And he's touching on the prediction that we're going to view ourselves as just mindless, machines. The modern world we live in knows nothing sacred. And I believe the Philosopher's Stone is realizing the innate potential in us all, which is the first building block to a better world. Anyway, that concludes my talk. So yeah, thank you all for listening. Yeah, which one?
It's about 3 or 4 slides back.
You would like to read this? Tarot experts have identified the magician in association with the fool. It's a really interesting connection. I missed the slide, I must have not let it in, but I put the fool, I did, the fool, sorry. So when you arrange the tarot cards in a particular order, it starts with the fool, who's mindlessly wandering away from the sun as well, and he goes through the major arcana, and he ends at the magician, the master of the 4 elements. So that's what that kind of is. Really interesting. Again, no time to go into it, but yeah.
Actually, in the tarot, the fool can be put at the beginning or at the end.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's why it's got no number. The fool.
Yeah, and it used to be called the soul, apparently.
But at the second cycle of the interpretation of the tarot card, the fool is the initiator.
Yes. Yeah.
Who decides to go along the path.
And attain gnosis. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yes.
Solipsism, the philosophy of solipsism, it's hinging on 6 traditions at the beginning of your lecture, create the divine creates its own reality, the only real thing is universe of yourself, everything else is a creation of you.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that at all?
I am familiar with it, yeah. We went over it a lot, and painfully went over it a lot in philosophy. So is that the idea that all of creation came from the mind?
What is it? You are, only you exist, nothing else exists but your mind.
Yeah.
Everything else around it is your creation.
Yes.
We are all creations of your mind.
Yeah. The explanation given for that is, one of the things said is is a tree off in the woods that no one sees, does it exist? It's called idealism. And it's the idea that our minds create reality. I wrote a whole paper on it. It's very painful.
That's more
Yeah.
It could actually be degrees of solipsism and quantum physics. The concept of the observer effect and
believe me, I know exactly what you're touching on. I could have made this whole talk about just that first part. It's deep. Like I said, does anything exist at all? That's a very obvious thing, but philosophically you have to have proof for it, so anyway, yes.
There's a little book by Uspensky about the tarot, and he says the fool has a little stick with the bag on his shoulder, and what's in the bag is the 4 elements. And he's a fool because he forgot how to use them.
Jesus, look at that. So, I love that. Wish you'd told me that before. Jesus.
Can you go one slide?
Back? Yeah.
There's another interpretation.
That one?
That
What he carries, consciously he carries his karma, his past, and he willingly decide to go along with it. So that's one symbol also of carrying the bag.
Interesting. Yeah.
And because it's behind as well, behind you.
Yeah.
But infinity is above. The infinity sign.
Yes. Oh, I've heard something about that.
Eternity.
Yeah, is it? I think it's the Gnostics. The Gnostics use that symbol as well to symbolize gnosis or divine wisdom. So he possesses divine wisdom. You have the above and below symbolism, of course, and even what is above still has the above and below. You know, it's a microcosm and a macrocosm. And he possesses gnosis, knowledge, divine wisdom over himself, over the four elements. These are called the Hallows. I don't know if people seen Harry Potter. You guys seen Harry Potter? Okay, the Deathly Hallows. J.K. Rowling took that from these. Yeah, so that's what the Hallows are. And the sword of its Excalibur. This is the Holy Grail. This is the wand of Merlin. And this is just a Celtic symbol for... Yeah, the pentacle, but it's originally a stone. And it symbolized divinity. Like only the king sat on this stone or something. I didn't research it in deep enough, but it's just a layering of symbols. This is one card in the whole arcana. So, yeah. Any other questions? I'm good for more of you guys going, but
All right, thank you.
anyway, thank you very much.